Alright, in part one I talked about the basics of using the pen tool. Now let's try and put some of that into action, where we're going to try to make a selection here. Now obviously this wine bottle's on a white background, so I probably could use some other tools, but it's the only one I could find that gave me some challenges with different little curves and so on. So basically we're going to use the same theory in terms of anywhere we want a straight line, we can just do a series of single clicks, just like this. And again, I can always tweak it later on. So let's go down to here. Now, right around here, there's starting to be a little bit of a curve. So I'm going to do one more straight line. Now I'm going to click and drag a little bit to create a handle and start to drag and try and kind of match up with the line of the bottle. Now the challenge with this is always to know where to click, and I can't give you any really great rule of thumb other than just to try and experiment. The key thing to remember is that matched pretty well there, but let me undo that part, and let's say that I only went, or I tried to go to here and here. Now you can see that worked pretty well also, but ideally we want to use the minimum number of anchor points we can get away with to give ourselves a good quality. So let me just delete all that. I want to show you some other little tips along the way that can help you. Let's start up here again. If I click down here, I can always click and drag, as we showed you before, to start with the curve. If I miss a little bit like I did there, instead of worrying about it at the time, I'm just going to keep going and then pause, hold down the Command or Control key to get that selection tool, and now I can tweak it either by moving the anchor point or by moving one or more of the handles. Okay, just like that, and you can always, again, pick up where you left off. And the real key to this is that you can always, anytime you see a point, you can always continue working. Even though my bottle continues, I'm just going to go across here and then back up this way. So I want to create a slight curve, something like that, up to about here somewhere. And again, as I'm doing this, I'm not worrying too much about the fact that there are areas where I didn't really match up like there, because I know I can always go in and tweak like I did before. Sometimes the challenge is seeing where the handles are. So let's zoom in a little bit here. So you can see I have a handle here and I have a handle up there. So sometimes you have to kind of move things out of the way, like this handle here. Sometimes it gets so close the handle almost looks like an anchor point. So you just have to be willing to experiment and play a little bit. But the more you do this, the more you'll find it becomes kind of like anything. With some experience, you'll know where can I click, how far can I go up the image before I need another anchor point. This one here I need to pull out a little bit more. The anchor point itself here probably is in the wrong place. This whole time, by the way, I'm holding down the Command or Control key. Now, you may find that you need an additional anchor point. There are tools that are called the Add Anchor Point, Delete Anchor Point tools, but frankly they're completely unnecessary. Because if you position your cursor above the path where there isn't an anchor point, it adds one. If you position the pen cursor on top of an existing anchor point, it deletes it. So really having that add or delete anchor point thing is really not all that important. The other ones that we might use in here, the Convert Anchor Point tool, I'm just going to start a path over here so you can see what it does. If I just do a series of straight lines, there's no curve involved, of course. I can't adjust any curve because I didn't draw any curve. That's what the Convert Anchor Point tool is. After the fact, it lets you drag outwards to make a curve, or if it is a curve and you don't want it to be, click once and it goes straight again. So you can apply that theory to when you're working on the path itself. If you notice a place where you wish you hadn't made it a curve, obviously in this case I should, but just saying that you could do that, or if you need it to be a curve, you can just drag a handle back out again. Now, ultimately, you'll end up with a path that's a series of curves and anchor points and so on. Again, as we saw in part one, ultimately we would save as something, and then once we've saved it, we've got all these buttons across the bottom that let us do something with that path. Turn it into a selection, which is a very common use, or apply some stroke or something else. But the key is You got to just start practicing and find yourself something to trace around with the pen tool, and try and apply this theory. And I think you'll find with a bit of practice, you get used to it, it actually is a great way to very accurately draw a path that you can then turn into a selection. So be prepared to do a little bit of practice and experimentation, but with a bit of practice you can do just about anything you want. Including making yourself look more studious, I guess. I don't know. I'm Dave Cross. I shall see you next time.